Episode 19 of Writer's Block is here. It's been a long wait since the last one. Apologies, my webcam. I got a new one. It's all good now, except that like XSplit just crashes every time I open it with a new webcam. So that's something to work on. But I'm close to having a functional talk show. It's any day now. A year into the run, about we'll actually have a talk show that works. But as I said in the comment section in previous episodes, like me not you guys not being able to see my face really isn't a negative in any way. But okay, let's talk to people. Max.
Fuck, dude.
Okay.
Scott, you need to
Max,
be like way more. You need to be 40% perkier for me, dude. Like okay. I need something from you right now, man.
Okay, Max. It's been a while since I've seen you, but actually
that was exactly 40%.
Yeah, that was much better.
It's been a while since I've seen you, but I've actually been doing things since you've been traveling around the world doing interviews and stuff. I actually was on not necessarily the most viewed podcast in the world, but the best podcast by far in Counter-Strike recently. I haven't, and you weren't on it. I was on it. You weren't on it. It's a little show called Writer's Block.
Right.
We missed you for the last
episode. I missed you. You successfully
That's right. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
I was absent.
Well, that's my dig at you. Okay, so Sam.
Who was the guest?
Us.
Oh right, yeah, okay, yeah. That's good.
So fucking long. Okay, Sam.
I know.
All right, it's New Year, same me, but I'll try to be nicer. Okay, that's my promise. You can. Free invitation right now. You can take a shot now. It's just I gotta work on I got to do some coding or something. I don't know. All right, let's do the show. Okay, so we're gonna do a top 10 list. Gonna try to get people from a certain website subtweeting me in anger. Let's just do our own list. Let's not just be let's create something. Let's not just be critics. But I wanna just to not create further anger, not continue the cycle of violence. I want us for the rest of the show not to mention this website's name that may or not be angry with me. Okay, if you have to reference it, you can use a different name. So just so they don't get upset that we're talking about them. I suggest the name we can call them Team Smooth Brain. That'd be or you can if you want to talk about their list of players that may be 5 players, 10 players, 20 players, 30 players. Who knows what the list is? You can just refer to that as the Smooth Brain Manifesto. All right.
Okay.
Let's not use names. Let's not insult anybody, okay? We're going to be positive, really nice people this year.
I think you're the only one who planned on being negative otherwise.
Yeah, dude. This is, I came with energy, all I knew is I came in with energy and a love for HLTV, and now I just feel
Whoa. Like no names, sir.
A love for Team Smooth Brain. Come on.
Jesus, sorry. Oh, holy shit.
I mean, here's the thing about that website. It's not even the website that is like an esports website that consists of 4 letters and vaguely an anagram that I hate the most. I hate a different website that's a 4-letter anagram 1,000 times. So it's not even a big beef. All right. So the top 10 list.
That's small fish, dude.
Yeah.
That's small fish. Jesus. Wait, what's that other 4-letter website's name if I want to refer to it?
It's not like they make Counter-Strike content anyway, so they're pretty irrelevant.
Hey, they might at around May 4th to 9th. Sorry.
Dragger Troglodyte, so NDT.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Gotcha. Got it.
All right, so
can we go the list? Do the list now, please?
Yeah, okay. I'm trying not to kill your career at this point in the podcast. Trying to make sure you still have positive relationships with the outside world. So, okay, so the top 10 list. I mean, we can go ahead and explain more using my things. I think that a method in which you just it's about the accumulation of accomplishments is sort of like I don't know. I don't agree with it. Like just because of the nature of the tournament structure, where teams you eliminate teams, best teams of the world play a lot more, so just cumulative accomplishments doesn't make sense. So I'm trying to disaggregate that and just try talk about who's like the best on a per game basis, or who I think is best that way. So it's going to be pretty different than the Smooth Brain Manifesto in that sense. Also, I'm trying to be very conscious of roles. I'm not gonna. I didn't do a lot of math or research statistically, because I think that stuff's pretty flawed. And I've watched. I mean, I know that people who run other websites in esports who may or may not be journalists have reported on the veracity of my esports knowledge. They said I've watched 0 games of Counter-Strike this year, but I've watched a good bit, and I'll just, it's just sort of a general thing. I'm not making it too strict of too intense of a list. But Sam, do you want to explain your reasoning?
Yeah, sure. So I had 2 main criteria for my list, which were apathy and nihilism.
Okay.
Nice. There was some questionable like replies to my DMs in this group chat where I was just reading. I'm like, oh fuck, dude, I don't know what. I know what's going on because when I was still overseas, I saw you had already begun researching things about like Dupree, and I started getting anxious because I was like, fuck, like what's he gonna drop,
Yeah, no. So I did my list twice, and then I meditated on it. And then realized the uselessness of other people's opinions, and then I completely changed my list based solely on what I thought and not what other people thought, which was really, really hard to do, by the way, because what I realized is that we have such ingrained beliefs based on a common perception or public consciousness of what these players are like. And so I had to try to uncondition myself from all those things. So that's sort of the apathy to other people's opinions. And the nihilism is that I realized that I have no solid criteria or good basis for any of my opinions. I did so, but in seriousness, if I want to, but one thing that I did that did heavily impact my judgment more so than it did prior was a quality of play versus specific opponents, looking at different people's performances depending on teams. I realized that there are some players that benefit massively statistically from playing against bad teams or lesser teams, and that do very poorly. One example is the degree to which Device was good against Liquid. That came out. The degree to which Cold Zero was bad against, or at least Cold Zero's rating was not great against opponents. That made me have to watch demos to see what was going on and things like that. I thought that was a really useful thing to try to kind of chisel away at the data to make it more, say, accurate. But otherwise, I don't have solid criteria. I don't think this is an objective list. I went off of feeling mostly, as I do in most things. That's about it.
See, because I did mine 2 days ago after having not watched Counter-Strike for a month and a half, and so the piece of content I've primarily been working on lead up to this was Bravado. So, but the thing, and I totally agree with you, and I see this more as like almost if someone gives you their top 10 albums of the year, you listen to their opinion based on having to already listen to them speak about music in the past, and you can sort of figure out based on what they've liked in the past and based on the way that how they think about music, their list sort of, you can read into it a little bit. And if you get heaps of different music reviews, then in general, hopefully like the best stuff ends up towards the top. And to me, everyone in this group chat has a very different way of looking at Counter-Strike. And I don't know, like for example, like the biggest you're talking about, how teams are ranked against sort of the relative strength of their opponents and how well individuals can perform against other elite teams. I definitely consider that as well. But in the way I look at it, I'm looking way more at how individuals are able to succeed within the context of their team dynamic and in the dynamic of the overall team success, and how much of a piece they play in how successful their team becomes. And so I don't know. Whereas like the Smooth Brain Manifesto, how their ranking works is based on the success more so of the team throughout the year, rather than the individual's role within the context of the team dynamic.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So, without further ado, I think that's good enough for explaining our reasoning or basic
Framing it up,
formula.
yeah.
I mean,
Now we get
the
into the
idea
meat
that
of
we
it,
had to have an
this is-
objective list is silly, right? There's no objective.
No, but it's like I think it's
best.
good to explore,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
frame the nuance of it. You know?
Yeah, I just don't like that idea that we have to like it's like set in stone or something. Like, it's obviously your opinion, and shouldn't, the idea of trying to be quote unquote objective is so it's like a third grader's understanding of intelligence. It's just like I don't think it's very
But the problem is, it's like there's numbers and there's stats, and it's like his rating is this, and it's higher than this person's rating, and so it's like a trick into thinking there's objectivity.
Yeah.
And there's so much thought and time put into the reasoning and the justification of rankings normally, that if you don't do any research yourself and you read that shit, you can just think it's objective. Like that's what I did when I was starting out. Like when I first started watching Counter-Strike, I'm like, oh, obviously this is just the best player list.
Yeah. All right, but I'll start with my number one. My number one.
Oh wait. So at number 10 or number 1?
Oh shit.
Because
Well, okay, no.
Wait. Can I make an argument for starting at number 10?
Can we just start?
Because I think like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 between all of us is going to be way more similar than 10 to 7.
Which is why I think we should do it first and get it away.
Because this is where most of the divergence is going to be. Because mine's fucking highly debatable. Like off the bat, I've got some questions.
My number 10 was going to be Breezy, but then I was thinking about like he didn't really have a tournament till May. I'm like, is this really so I was gonna wait until the very end and then like sneak a name in, like steal one of yours. No. So that's why I didn't want to start at 10.
Well, do you want to start with someone else and then?
I can start. Can I start with my 10?
Yeah, you can start.
Yeah.
With
okay. Unacceptable. Okay, but I have to contextualize because I struggled really hard with the last kind of like there's like 15. There's like 10 to 15 was about equivalent to me. So there are people like Ethan. People like Tapson.
Give honorable mentions maybe. Yeah.
So those are all honorable mentions for me. Those two were people that I really thought about. Elish to a lesser extent, but not nearly as much. Oscar, I considered. These were players. Guardian, These are players I considered, but the main ones were Tapson and Ethan. I decided against them in favor of Coldzera as my number 10. Which originally, when I first started this, is when I talk about I redid the entire list. I started Coldzera at number 5. And then this was my first intuitive list based on like not having watched any demos of Coldzera and just going off of public opinion. And then I realized that the doxa was pretty false. I realized how poorly MIBR had done against top teams. And I started watching Coldzera, and I still thought that Coldzera was a really good player. And I respect the intuition, or I understand the intuition I had to rank him higher, because I do think that if he was part of a better team, he probably would have shown more. But I thought that his team was so bad, and I thought that Coldzera had more to give. Like it's not like Coldzera in the previous years had bad stats or did or suffered in his fragging when his teammates were doing poorly. I get that they never did as badly as they have now. So that's all like to justify.
Just to say, I don't have Guardian in my top 10, but he was someone that I considered for the spot, and I didn't consider Coldzera for number 10. So do you think that
Coldzera's not in your top 10?
No, because I forgot about that shit.
Right.
Just to be honest.
So it's a difficult question. Like I just thought Coldzera
to me, it was like
I have
Guardian
Coldzera ranked higher than 10 or lower. If you want to put it that way.
Lower than 10.
Like,
you mean higher than 10? Okay. So that to me this is a very difficult question, because it depends on how willing you are to let go and kind of give way to your imagination, because there's an alternative world in which MIBR is better than they were, especially for the first half of the year, or first 3 quarters of the year. And I think that
because to me MIBR has just been so bad.
But the thing is that they haven't been that bad.
Yeah.
Like
no,
if you look
to their peaks.
I mean, like why would I consider Tapson or Ethan but not Coldzera? like Cold Zero was part of his roster. It's just that it's much less impressive because we're looking at a player who used to be number 1 2 years in a row, arguably. Yeah. I would say number 2 last year, but that's regardless. I think that we have such high standards for him and for MIBR that we look at that as very boring.
Is it like, does he have quite? I haven't looked at Cold Zero's stats in that much depth, but does he have very good numbers? Or like why?
Cold Zero has good numbers. Cold Zero has numbers comparable to almost everyone in this list except for Simple Device Nico. The only part where he suffers is in his big event playoffs rating.
Yeah, but they lose. See, that's high art.
Yeah, and that's a thing.
Yeah, but I felt like I wasn't willing to give way too much to my imagination. So that's the same reason that Ethan isn't on this list. I think Ethan is an amazing player, but I feel like based on what he showed, I can't, not just because of the success of the team, it's just off what he showed. If I just look at that and not look at, oh, look at the skills, imagine what he could do in such and such situations. No imagination. What did he do? I think both those players are about equivalent. But I think that Cold Zero is just a super solid player, and that he was let down massively by his team this year, which is why I wasn't willing to let him out of the top 10. I felt like that was criminal. But at the same time, I felt like the other people showed a lot more. The other people I have on this list had a lot more individual success in playoffs and individual success in general. So, yeah, Cold Zero number 10 for me.
Okay,
Max, I want to change my number 10 now.
What's your top?
Dude, I'm looking at mine like, fuck.
Who did you have at number 10?
Valde.
Oh, wow.
Not sure how.
That should also be
like, but he's such a superstar. He's such a stud in some of the early parts of the year.
Yeah, like the thing is, but to me, like, so for me, it was like my honorable mentions was like Automatic, Sunny, Guardian, Valde, because
okay, we can't give Sunny. Sunny had such a bad last third of the year that I know. Yeah, so it's such a significant portion of time. Like, I get it. I think Sunny was in the first half, 2/3 of the year was amazing. But
yeah, like as in like second, like I think but I know what you're saying as well. But to me, his peak was so because like for periods of time and for I think quite a long period of time relative to how bad Mouse became as a team. Like Sunny was a top 3 player in the world for like a period of time, and then he was a top 5 player in the world. He was early.
Maybe top 5, but not top 3.
I thought it was insane. But anyway, but he was someone I considered. And I considered Automatic and I considered Guardian as well, especially Guardian. To me, it was a toss up between either one. Because mainly I was thinking in terms of like just how they are as a player and just what they bring to the table as a player. And that's why I picked Valde as number 10, because I think when I watch Valde, he's one of the most insane players for me to watch, just in terms of how like North didn't win much in that year and they didn't have a lot of success, so there was no reason to watch them. But as to my 2 fellow like North comrades will know who are in this call, like when they did win, Valde did some nutty shit, and he impressed me and like made me go make noises in the middle of the night by myself at a computer. Like he did that to me more than many other players do. But at the same time, I know he doesn't have any of the like results or the big playoff consistency or against big teams as other players who should be at number 10 do. But yeah, anyway, that's why I picked Valde.
That's interesting. I think on HLTV he was number 20. No.
Yeah,
20.
So
yeah,
he was.
Yeah.
I have to look at those stats. That's ridiculous. Like that feels very low. I'm surprised that you're that high on Guardian. To be honest,
I'm 8 for Guardian for me.
You put him in your top 10?
Yes, that's just what I said.
I know. I'm just okay. Well, I guess we'll.
See,
talk
this is where it's the best shit ever, because like we all have such different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, but you have to look at.
My thing is like I really do like think that we should disaggregate. Like, well, he's not a good team, so he didn't go that many playoffs. Like at some point, you can't like give like whoever your favorite love is at the moment, whether that be Yuki or who's the other guys. Walksick, yeah. You can't give them that much credit because they actually didn't. They have the potential, but they actually haven't proven it. I feel like there's like a certain point, like you really can't just like count accomplishments. You can't just like accumulate kills, you know, and see like who has the most. Like I feel like that's silly to, but for me, Valley just like when he's just not there for the second half of the year, you know, like I mean, he was there at.
Oh no, Scott, I can't agree with you more. After listening to you guys talk about it, I think it's retarded that I have Valde at number 10.
I understand though,
just justifying it based on like my, because you have to like I just put this list and I don't know. I was just writing. I didn't put the way I did it was I didn't put like any order. I just wrote all the players and it was like 30, 35 players who I just thought were fucking sick this year, like and who I just thought were like awesome. And then I looked at the HLTV top 20 and saw if there was anyone that like sparked me. And then I looked at their teams. And then so I had probably 40 names. And then I just occasionally looking at the stats on HLTV and occasionally looking at the results, but mainly by feel, just putting them in and then slimming down the list.
Yeah, so what you used in philosophy, we call it the archaic perspective, which is you evaluate things based on the virtues that they demonstrate. So if you look at Valde's skill set, I definitely agree that he was very, very impressive. I wouldn't go so far as to say that he was skill set wise as impressive as, but
true. But I didn't watch any Cold Zero, and I watched a lot of North.
Yeah,
so
fair enough. Yeah, which is understandable. Yeah. Obviously, everyone knows that North has always been more interesting than any team that Cold Zero has played for. Yeah. But at the same time, you can't just look at people's virtues because it's very, very difficult to compare one player's strengths with another, saying like maybe you can for aim, but like decision making and stuff like that, it gets really wheezy. Like,
but that's what I was trying to say beforehand with me. Like, I feel like if you I don't know, I feel like in theory, because for example, I have a rough idea where you two are gonna go in this top 10. But just because I've talked to you guys so much about CS, and in general, I sort of know what you look for when you talk about players. And so that's what I was trying to make with the analogy about the music before. Like, if you sort of know the way I think about CS and the way I write about CS, like
you like players, but it feels like guys who are very like have a very specific skill set or like are very impressive in terms of players, but I think maybe I'm more like results oriented or more about like the aesthetics or something like that.
Definitely. But yeah, and so that's the you might think it's retired, but hopefully at least if you have that knowledge, it makes at least a little bit of sense.
No, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I'm willing to go down to number 9. My number 9. All right, Sam, prepare to be triggered. Prepare to scream into the screen. Is going to be Magic.
Okay, that's fucking spicy, dude. All right, that's debatable, Scott.
All right, come at me. Come at me.
I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question first. Is how many Astralis members ranked in your 1 to 8?
Well, just ask how many are in your top 10. Like that's
3.
Oh, whatever.
3.
I have
how many
7,
in yours, Max?
Guardian 8, and then Magic's 9.
You can't. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3.
So we all don't have Glaive.
Okay. I hate that shit.
We should talk about that eventually. But yeah, let's talk about that. We need to talk about that because that's been a thing for the last like 6 months. Okay, so the first thing that I want to point out is that no one. Okay, it's by convention in Counter-Strike when we do ratings, we don't consider whether or not people are in-game leaders. And like I wrote a big ass thread about this, and Peter from HLTV or Peter, I don't know, Peter, agreed with me, and he said that's how they based their solve too. We have an epistemic limitation to what's inside the game. We consider what's inside the game, and it's understood that these are not the most valuable players in terms of real value, just in terms of internal value. Okay, so that said, if you look at Glaive as a player, you can't consider whether or not he's an in-game leader, even though, given the fact that he's an in-game leader, what he did was very, very impressive. Second, the thing with Glaive is that everyone on Astralis had bloated ratings because of the success of the team. And when you get a frag, when you get a frag, you can't tell whether or not, unless you look at the actual instance of the frag, when it gives you a digit on a screen, it doesn't tell you why you got that kill. Did you get that kill because of utility? Did you get that kill because of communication? What made you get that kill that another player wouldn't have got? What is the value you're providing?
Did you cheat or smoke?
Yeah. In terms of external value, it's very probable that Glaive brings a lot of the value that gets Astralis those bloated stats. But in terms of individual performance, probably not. So if you look at last year or you look at next year, if predicated on the belief that Astralis won't be the best team of all time next year, well, then his stats will probably go back down to like 105 or something like that, or your 0.99 or something like that. Same with Zipex, where he will not be a 113 or a 112 next year. It's very unlikely. He hasn't been that throughout his career. If you look at, even though, yes, when you look at all his stats are in the top 10 in a bunch of categories, and in impact, he was very remarkable. I don't think you can, in good faith, attribute that to individual performance rather than team performance. I don't think. Well, no. It doesn't mean. It doesn't mean thinking he is. It just means is he better than like Sonny this year?
No.
In terms of individual value,
but I do think he had a very good year. Like I think there's an argument
totally.
that he actually had a better year than Zipex. Now I don't think that's crazy.
Yes.
I don't think that's crazy. Like, oh, maybe he's actually in the top 20. I don't think that's crazy. These motherfuckers, like, he's a top 5 player, and if you don't agree with me, you haven't watched Counter-Strike this year. Like that shit.
But
is like.
I think HLTV had him 8th. So you consider who's below. Twists is 12th. On that list.
I know. This is what people getting mad at me when I point this out. It's like, it's just he's the 4th best player on Astralis at least. You could say he's the 5th if you want to make that argument. I would have to delve in deeper to that. But no, I think the idea that like he is a player on level with a Twist, a Cold Zero, a Guardian is frankly ridiculous. He is a good player though. He definitely like does bring things to Astralis. Like outside on Nuke or something, he's actually a very good player. Like anyone plays.
But, like I also think it's you have to take into account even though he doesn't have that, like what he actually does have is the moment you remember. Like he's always that guy that
like Fallen.
He and that's why people think he's so sick. Is like every single time you mention Zipnix's name, you don't mention all the like rounds he just dies, all the rounds he gets one kill. You remember the time he got that fucking 1v4 in the grand finals where like it should have been impossible, And so I naturally understand that for sure. Because I considered him for the top 10. He's not in my top 10, but I was like, it's fucking sick.
Yeah, but when you so I agree with you that it's when you really start comparing him to alternatives. Like, would it be reasonable for me to put him above Twist, to put him above Cold Zera? Like, do you really think that Glaive provides more internal value to his team than Cold Zera? That's too far for me.
No,
that's
silly.
So to me, he would have to be around. Maybe he's in the top 20, but he's not in the top 10. So anyway, okay, that was the 10. Sorry, it's just because people are going to mention Glaive if we don't mention it, if anyone cares. So
now yell at me about
now. Okay, so when it comes to Magisk, why?
Okay, so I think my opinion. I think I want to be consider, as I said in the beginning, I want to consider the fact that success. I want to like segregate success from how I think of a player. Like, so I don't want to overrate the Astralis players. And B, that I want to be role specific and think about roles. Can you think of anyone in the world who has an easier job than Magic's? Easily the best team in the last like 2 years, given the most primo CT spots.
I would
no
say
difficulty roles. Dude is just living
you could say
on cloud
that logic you can apply to any of the Astralis players though, because like
I wouldn't say for Dupree. That's my exact argument.
I would say that.
I think
but you can say that for Device as well.
Yeah, I think Device is the easiest job on that team.
Yeah, I think he is by far. That's dude. He was nearly not in my top 10. Like the first time I did this list, and I was looking for all the sick players. He was nearly not in my top 10. He is now, but he was nearly not in my top 10.
Astralis sets up their game, or like he. is like very.
Dude, MSL did
Yes.
Device's job and won the fucking MVP. So,
No,
like,
okay.
but you know what
No.
I mean? Like
No,
MSL did that.
I
shit.
get you. But no, but
So,
he decides his own fate in a way that Magic's doesn't. He's just put in bed. Like he's just put in.
Yes,
I don't think so, man. Like,
I put Device for me is number 2. So this was a but there was a very specific. If you want to watch, if you wanted my list of reasons, you can watch my episode with Stucci where we talk about this. There's too much of Astralis' team success.
anyway, let's just go like one by one.
So
hey, this is the foreplay. This is just like the kissing.
when it comes
Sam can't hold it in.
when it comes
He was
So-
blow his load all over the group
Magisk.
chat this last
So
week.
it is true that Magisk is, you could say, the most, let's say, sheltered of all the players on Astralis. If you look at his stats that came out today on HLTV, he's like the player with the second least deaths per round. Like he plays quite isolated positions, or he plays small site, or he plays large sites, but he's the anchor there. He's not the rotator. This is all going to help. He plays ramp on nuke, and they play a shit ton of nuke. In a lot of ways, he's not going to get it.
Ramp.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Am I wrong? Okay, well I'm wrong. Never mind. Are you sure?
I mean, he
Yes,
plays
okay.
outside.
When I watched demos of Device earlier for my prep with him, he was playing ramp, but that might be a bad sample size. So anyway, he plays a lot of sheltered positions and he has least deaths. But if you look at the fact that he has least deaths, why is it that he has higher impact than Dupree, despite being in way more isolated positions? To me, that's even more impressive. And also,
because he's aggressive on CT side as well. Like he is the guy that like works with Dupree to open up. Like he is the role he fills on Astralis is so important. And you have to think like this team built like even though the game is built around Astralis, they were built together, and Magis plays an important part in that. Like a really, really important part. I think. Like more so than Zipnix for sure, more so than Dupree. Like,
he might also be the most consistent player on that team. Yeah. Like in terms of like I said this was one of my big criteria is like if you look at Magisk's ratings across different teams, it's so consistent. It's all the same, all the way through Na'Vi and Team Liquid. He's super solid. In fact, he might be against even Na'Vi. He might be their best player.
Oh wait, sorry. Did we say? Even in Optic, he was sick. Like he's never not.
Yeah, well, less sick.
No, I didn't watch Optic, so I can't. Really,
I did.
My impression from watching Gamer he wasn't that good in Optic. They actually.
Well, I mean, that team was so shit. The fact he was like average was impressive, dude.
The problem
with Simple in that team, and he would have gone like sub 0.8, dude. Anyways,
the problem with Optic Magisk and Optic is that like that team was such a mess that Magisk was trying to do way too much, and this. Team, one of the ways in which he benefits is that in a way he doesn't have to do a lot of activity.
I feel like he's so in the pocket. He's just like, just like in the middle of the action. Like, he's always
he plays like insight on he plays insight on a Mirage.
Yeah.
When they choose to play insight, when they don't play retake, he plays CT if they play retake. I'm trying to think of the other maps. Like on Inferno, doesn't he play?
He plays Pit.
He plays Pit. So, he's the best Pit player in the world.
Yeah. There's like all these Splotsy players that. To me, whenever I think of one of the foundations of Astralis' CT side, Magisk's name always comes up.
Yeah. You used a good phrase when I was talking about this on Twitter. You called it micro positioning, like not global positioning, like moving around the map, but like just the way he plays his spot.
Yes.
Just like going in and out, getting the perfect way of taking the duel.
I agree.
I call it pressure response. So when how do you respond to pressure when
fantastic he's duelist?
And I always said this. He's like the best in the world when it comes to this. Coldzera maybe, but like this is where he shines. And I think, but the reason that I gave Magisk the bump over Dupree, and I understand that Dupree plays a less consistent role. So because Dupree is forced to play more aggressively, he's going to suffer. But I just think that Magisk was so much more effective against the top teams in the world. And I was really trying to give credit to people for that fact. And so I had Magisk at number 5. Like,
no, you can't spoil this shit, Sam. You gotta wait until we fucking get to the number, all right? Like, if you blow your load again, there's gonna be. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay,
I get it. Astralis is sick. I get it.
But I think. I was so impressed with Magist. I don't think that you can have him at 9. I agree.
Dude, hey, guess what? As we go down the list, we get to rub our titties about Magist again because he's further down.
All right, Sam, who's your number 9?
Twist.
Ooh.
Okay. That's
So, did you guys have Twist in your top 10?
I had him lower than 9. Yes. I had him better than 9. Like
just say higher up the ranking. Now.
I had him higher. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a lower number than 9 on my list.
I originally had him higher too.
Yes.
But then I started looking more in detail at his play. And
I'm aware that this exists, but it didn't stop me from still ranking him super well.
I think if you look at the air take perspective, as I said, and you look at his skill set,
yes.
I would have put Twist at 5.
Yeah.
I think he was super impressive. But if you look at his actual performances event to event, and I know he was sick and he had health issues and all this thing, and that probably contributed to his inconsistent play.
You can't really count that. Like if he did play good at the event, you really can't be like, oh,
yeah,
well,
no, but that's right. I'm not like I
text, and he can't respond to that. You know.
On a human level, I sympathize, but when it comes to the rankings, I just think that Twist wasn't the most consistent Team Liquid member. And there's some series where he was just not. I mean, that's true for every Team Liquid member, but I thought he was the most prone to just not being present and not having an impact out of Liquid's 3 stars. And I Elige is not.
His peaks were higher though, right?
Yeah. So Elige, I thought Elige was more consistent, but I didn't put Elige. More consistent at least for an extended period of time. He had a bit bad period, but I just thought that there were too many times where I don't know if it because he wasn't confident, but he wasn't connecting, and in a way that I thought that other people on this list were. And so even though his peaks very much impressed me, there are other people that I value more based on consistent impact, and you'll see that in my number 8.
Okay, Max, do you have a number 9?
Crims was my number 9.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with me is I was thinking about making Crims higher on my list, or he's not in my list, but I haven't watched enough of him this year, so I really didn't feel like I should give the argument because I don't know.
So if you want to and you know how I said Sunny was a top 3 player in the world or whatever, and whatever, fucking that was a long time ago. Definitely Crims was insane at the start of this year and consistently a top 5 player, and I would argue definitely at times a top 3 player in the world in terms of around the Katowice WSG time. He was absolutely
definitely crazy. Towards the first third of the year. Yeah.
Yes.
My impression, he sort of really reinvented himself as a player.
Yeah, well, because he was in. You have to think that Fnatic team was playing with Golden, and I remember asking Maui Snake, I'm like, oh, what do you think of this Fnatic team? Because I knew that he had a research report for Thorin about Fnatic. I was just like, oh, dude, they just default every round. I don't think they've run a single tactic. I haven't seen them run a tactic yet. I'm like, oh, cool. Then you watch Fnatic, it's literally just they're just mid-round every single round. And there's always, the way they win was just because Crims would find a kill at some point in the round, or he'd find 2 kills, and then that would open up space for the rest of the team to close from. And his ability to navigate impact just purely on his aim and his positioning and the way he was able to take duels around the map on T side as well. It's not the Magus pressuring on CT side with the flashbang. It's on T side opening up rounds just from his position on the default. And he did that throughout the year, but obviously not the same high level he did at the start of it. Tapered off towards as the year goes on, but he was still very
sort of Fnatic though. Yeah, I felt like as Fnatic did its exist Draken period was soul crushing. Yeah. And so I don't think that anyone on that team wanted to live anymore during that period of time. So it's definitely true that he had I had this is relevant. There's no suspense.
Yes,
I had okay. I had Crims at 7. So okay. I just think that if you look at what Fnatic achieved throughout the year, which is not that much. That may be surprisingly a lot at the beginning of the year, but overall it was very disappointing. And how just solid this guy was, and how I think that there's no player that could fit as well in every team in existence.
I don't know if they have this term in other countries, but he's a journeyman.
Yep.
Is that
sure?
Yeah. He's just a journeyman. Like, it's just, you put him in a team and he does well, you know. And he's been doing that forever, I think. Yeah. At least in my memory.
That's it. Plug and play, just whatever's fine.
Yeah. Which is insane to do at the level he does every single year.
Yeah.
Because it's like in sports, that's less, like in rugby at least, you know, there's especially at a club rugby level where people pay money playing things. It's like you just have these dudes who are like 36 years old, like 38 years old, have 0 knees. Their knees are gone. And then they just still rock up every single Thursday, every single Saturday and play. Except in these sports, it's like that doesn't happen at like a top 10 player in the level world, you know, if that sentence makes sense. But yeah, so I think Crims to me is like narrative, fair. Was it best and fairest? You know, like the character cup for just being consistent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I definitely think that, but I also think that Crims this year was different from the other years because Crims showed a peak that I'm not even sure that he's maybe ever shown for a very long period of time. Maybe back in like 2014.
Because he was like the Zipniks of Fnatic in that way, right? Like at least the way I remembered him back then.
Well, you cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, like, in the sense that he was like the Zipniks of Fnatic back in the day, right? If you were to like,
yeah, well, I don't know. He would play.
Just agree with the premise. Throw him a fucking.
From memory, I thought he was a large side
like
player,
not
a small side player.
No, that's what I was saying. That he's like a very different player this year.
Yeah, he was a more passive player. How about that? Like, I do think that he was more dynamic this year, but he's still not like, I don't know. He's so smooth. It just feels so effortless.
It felt like he was like he asserted himself as the team star, like playing upper like positions like bathrooms as CT on overpass, like more trying to assert himself and trying to be the star rather than just like, okay, well, if Meister's gonna do his thing, he's gonna push, he's gonna be aggressive. I'm just like to let the game come to me. Yeah.
So
just
yeah. So
So Crims, definitely. I don't know how you can have twist higher than Crims is this thing. Like this is what I mean by I don't like look at how consistent Crims was across the year, and it's just like you don't see the same.
I just haven't seen Fnatic just wasn't. See, I feel like he just doesn't hit that minimum threshold for me, like playing enough series for me.
I'm sorry. Fnatic won more events than Team Liquid did this year.
Well, like that was like the first 3 months of the year. It was like V4.
No, I understand what you're saying as well, Scott. No, I understand what you're saying as well, Scott. Like that's why I put Cold Zero in my list, dude, because I didn't just watch any MIBR because I didn't like.
Fair enough, but like,
so it's like
I just feel bad. This is why, like, when you complain, like, oh, why are all the best players from the best teams on the list? And it's because
because I'm lazy. I don't watch shit teams.
No, it's because you have a limited amount of time to watch games.
Yeah, I know.
You can't even watch all the. You can't. If we're being realistic, you can't actually even watch 5 teams. Like you can't. Any one time, you can't watch 5 teams. It's impossible because you're watching like 25 players, and there's so much to consider. You have to watch every single week. So of course, and this is why I tend to. I mean, like
it's sort of hard to make the argument. It's like I just don't have enough time for this. It's so hard. Like you can't keep track of it. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I haven't watched a single VOD in a month. I mean, you did say that at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's dude.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. In the grind, there's like a tournament every fucking weekend. Is like way too hard. I'm just joking, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
All right, let's go to
it's just important to be honest as well, and not to think it like have false credibility in any way.
Of course, no, of course. But so like, no, that's definitely true. But I just think that we kind of owe it to these players to make a mental correction of some kind. So like
that's also why we have 3 people. It's like 3 people equals one like not butthurt player.
Yeah. All right. So number 8, my number 8 is Guardian. Another person that might piss you guys off. Does that upset you? Not as mad as number 9.
No, I think as long as it's within like 2 to 4 of my ranking, because like to me like Guardian was at number 11, so I sort of get that.
I just think that he like his impact in terms of like when he's like he's like just a way better, like in my opinion he's just a better version of Oscar. Like when Oscar like is in terms of not how he functions in the game, but like in terms of his impact, you know, he just has those tournaments or those maps where he's just so on point. He's just dominating the team so hard that it seems like, wow, this guy is just like a fucking phenomenal player. He's he's the 8th best player in the world.
If I wasn't such a bitch and I put Device on my list, Guardian would be there instead. If I wasn't such a fucking pussy. Like, I agree with you. I 100% agree with what you're saying in terms of the way he takes over a game, what he can do on CT side, and even when FaZe is losing as well, which is like not as much as probably Device, but I think I like Guardian, but I know.
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed with him this year.
Remembering Epicenter, I don't know, but also Nico was so good that when I think of FaZe,
that's the other thing. If you could try to disaggregate success, as I've tried to do in my rankings, I mean, fucking FaZe was a shit show for a solid portion of this year. So props to Guardian for like, keeping that team afloat, like providing those performances that gets them those wins, those prize wins. Like I was watching the series where FaZe beat Straws at Chicago earlier today. Like a lot of that was like just fucking Nico and Guardian dragging the fucking corpses of that team through broken glass to like moderate results.
Guardian is amazing against Astralis and Device is terrible against FaZe. Like that is definitely a good point. I don't know. I think it's because I have such high expectations of Guardian. Like in my mind, he's the best he's the best opera of all time. And he's still skilled. So to me, I expect more of him. I expect Guardian to be a superstar that he hasn't been for a very long time. So when I look at him and I compare him to Nico in FaZe, which is obviously like Nico life, it's just not there. But obviously, if you compare it to the other players on FaZe this year, he's been quite impressive. But 8 is like we're gonna have to keep track of who you're omitting from your list to put Guardian in.
At the end we'll just go say 1 to 10 like in succession.
And I can put it in the description box, so everyone can judge this really, really quick, and leave negative comments. Get all the what is it called? The web maximization. You know, get all the attention to the video by getting like 50 comments.
All right, algorithms.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about Guardian that's positive because I've kind of shit on him is I do think that there's no opera that I can think of this year who was just in when he was on every aspect of the game just seemed like you were just totally confident that he was going to win every situation.
Obviously, except Simple.
We always go through this, but Simple is not an opera. He's in everything. It's like he doesn't process in my mind.
He's barely even a CSGO player, dude. He's
yeah, fair enough. Yeah, obviously Simple, but otherwise, like I look at the way that like Kenny S plays, or the way that the Device plays, and they just don't seem as threatening in every situation as Guardian. No. And with Guardian, I just have this steadfast confidence that everything is going to be fine, and he's going to create.
It's also the way he ops as well is like
it's beautiful.
It's because it's very nice to watch. It's pleasing.
Yes,
it's just sort of like I don't know. It's just like a cold drink on a summer's day. It's like yes, this is what I needed. You know, this is exactly especially if you play matchmaking as well. Like I'm always after watching Guardian, like, dude, I just need to fucking get into aimbots and then I'll get there. You know, like this is possible. This is possible. You know, I can replicate this.
I actually been playing a little bit of CS during this last month, and there's been no Counter-Strike. I really don't play much CS at all. Like very, 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 very little. Like for viewers of the show, like imagine like pick a number in your brain of like how much I play in terms of hours, like 100th of that number. You know, I play very, very little. I'm mostly just watching, but like it is pretty amazing when you watch some of these players. It's like they have that like super specific, amazing, like crosshair placement, aim, like Guardian, like simple, like Nico to a certain extent, like some players really like just on. It's just pure. It emphasizes the beauty of it, right? That just like your own like shittiness in comparison to theirs is
exactly what you're saying right now, Scott. Is why Twists is ranked so highly for me.
Yeah,
because it's like, dude, when that motherfucker. Anyway, we'll get to that. But like,
who's your number 8? Saying
Dupree.
That's not that bad. I'm not upset.
Yeah.
I considered. So on one hand, my air take perspective has always been down on Dupree. I've never really been fully confident in his ability in all the years.
Dude, he's a workhorse. He's such a workhorse.
I know, which is why I had to correct my own assessment and put him, because when I think like, who do I think is a better player, Coldzera or Dupree? Coldzera, easily. But but who achieved more and did better this year, just day in, day out? Dupree was very impressive. And once you take into account his role in Astralis, it's very impressive player, quite consistent. For if you compare, so he's probably the least consistent player on Astralis, I would say so. Although we could verify this statistically, but I think he is from intuition. But at the same time, compare how inconsistent he was this year compared to how inconsistent Apex has been, for example. And it's just not even on the same planet. Like, yes, he has a lot of help in his consistency because of his players, but after quite a mediocre year last year, I thought that Dupree stood out a lot more this year, and it kind of solidified himself as a star player. And I thought that he had struggled to do that in the last couple of years. So kudos to him. That's why I put him number 8. But I thought that other players were more impressive for me.
All right,
I had Dupree number 8 as well, just to say.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean I don't know. This is very convenient. I have him at 7, so that brings us nicely to 7.
Dude, how good is that?
This is a little bit too. This is a little bit too friendly.
I Crimson at 7, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all at a point.
Wait, do you want to hear who I had at 7?
Yeah, who did you have at 7?
Device.
I was about to say this is like the calm for the storm.
Okay, that's fine, man. I understand.
The most boring player in Counter-Strike.
I know.
Dude, fucking MSL did exactly what he did. Got an MVP. Easy fucking life to be Device. Dude. Easy life.
Why is it okay? Hold on. If it's so easy to be Device, why doesn't someone else do it?
Because no one else is in fucking Astralis, dude. Like no one else has.
I don't think so.
I think so.
So it's true that if you take your air take perspective, Device has always been the least impressive player of any superstar player. Like that's totally true. But at the same time, I think that when you look at VODs of Device and you like, well, that frag was easy, or that frag was easy. No, who wouldn't get that? Like I have a friend who played.
For sure. I know.
Who's kind of
I know it's retarded, but that's right. Like to me, because and this is just totally based on like what I think and what I watch, and it's like I get Astralis is the best team in the world, but this isn't like me writing a piece, or like this isn't a piece of content about like
the
legendary players, or like how important it is to have a player like Device in your team, or sort of the mystique around Device. It's to me just like individual players, and who when I watch them, I think like this player is better than this player. And to me, it's like when you think about the intangibles, like how long the Device has been doing this, the consistency which he's able to do it, the pressure and all this stuff, I get it. But to me, when it's just so consistent, so fundamental, that I don't know. It's also a bit of like a meme as well, the fact I put him 7. But like it's just it's hard for me to be impressed by what he does at a mechanical level, even though I get that it's consistently done in the best team in the world.
Okay, here's my analogy. Right, you ready for a great analogy? I already did this on Twitter, so if you've seen it already, it might disappoint. Might be repeating material, but I'm not. I'll do anything for like laugh or a comment to up the algorithm. So basically, here's the analogy. So Device and Astralis generally are like a classical Greek or Roman sculpture. It's like the aesthetic is beautiful objectively. It's great. It's well crafted. It's beautiful, right? Phase, Guardian, simple. That's fucking Kate Upton, some like dumbass chick on Gone Wild. You just see those like fucking knockers, usually your pajama pants at 8 o'clock or stretching like wild. You know, you're very excited to see it, but it doesn't make them more beautiful.
Okay.
You know, it's not. It's a different sort of beauty. It's a different sort of like appreciation. I acknowledge that. Like the raw mechanical skill of the device just isn't there, but his effectiveness is insane. Like he has so much impact. He turns around games. He like
Actually,
I think.
Can I change the name of my list? I'm not going to change the players. This is just the top 10 players from number 1 to 10 who give me the biggest boner when I watch them.
Okay.
Well,
And
can
so-
you not be so
okay, so
crude?
this
That's
is
a
the
little.
thing.
That's a little bit.
Yeah. So I think the reason that I think I had to put Device above Nico, which I think I'm the biggest Nico fanboy of any of the journalists, I think. But I had to, because I just think that I look at Device this year and I look at Device last year, and I don't think that other oppers can play like he does. Like I just don't see it. Like the way that Device moves constantly, not just round to round, but like every 20 seconds, finding different angles, catching people off guard. I've decided to attribute that to his decision making and not to. And it's true that if you think that's just Astralis or that's Glaive making a call or something like that, then and you take that outside of the game, then sure. But I evaluate Device's movements the same way that I evaluate the way that let's say the way that Valde plays a clutch.
And for exactly the reason what you're saying is it's like because he does that and because of what Astralis are as a team, that makes him the second best player in the world, right? But like if he did that shit on a bad team, it's like it doesn't work in the same way. Right. And so that's to me, and I will say like I have twists at 6. And it's like that's because it's boner now, and now we're talking about more. I realize it's retarded, but it's like to me, it's the what Device does is it's like it's for Astralis as a team, and what Astralis does, it's like he's the second best player in the world. But just as a player, and as just if you watch his VOD and like what he can achieve, and if you were to put him on another team, and all this like logical fallacy stuff that doesn't play into how you should probably rank players in the top 10 properly, then I think he's whatever. Like
so this came up actually in my discussion with Stuchu, where I pointed out that the way that I think about rankings is in terms of the value that you added to your team in that year. Meanwhile, but I fully started. It's like I have Nico ranked below Device, but I think that Nico is a better player than Device. Yeah, and that doesn't seem to make sense prima facie, because it seems like, okay, well, how is the better player getting a worse ranking? But it's because on any other team, Device is significantly worse. I think he has in terms of superstars, he has glaring flaws. Like for example, his pressure responsiveness on the op, I think, is quite bad, and I really don't trust him when there's 3 people coming in his way and he has 2 angles to manage. I just don't trust him to get all 3 of those kills. Meanwhile, if you take Guardian, all day, every day, so that is always worrying, and that always makes me uncomfortable with Device. And I think that that's why you see him in very tough matchups sometimes have pretty bad statistical performances, because I think that he relies way more on his game plan, and if his game plan doesn't work, then he doesn't have the mechanical skill to back it up. It's not like he's a bad mechanical player. He's quite a good mechanical player. He's just not a superstar in mechanics. But when you look at what he adds to Astralis specifically, I think that he added more to Astralis than almost any other player. Everyone but Simple, coincidentally. So I think that for that reason, I put Device at this term. But if I was to rank by your criteria, I wouldn't even have him in the top 10.
Yes.
I think
that's, and see, like and that's the thing was like
no, it's not a super serious list. This isn't like if we were doing an article, it'd be different. If we
if this was something that I would put in writing, and it's like I would want to have, and I had to set up a full criteria written out, and I couldn't just write boner in all caps, full stop at the end of it, then I agree with everything you're saying.
No, a podcast should be like 10% dick jokes, like 30% serious, 50% airing of my grievances about other people.
With other entities in the space.
Okay, that was 7, right? So 6 I have. I'm trying to remember. 6 I have Cold Zero.
Okay, so that's high for me. I have a Cold Zero equivalent,
Okay,
but a better Cold Zero. I have
Good.
NAF.
Okay.
See,
Now it gets boring
don't-
because 5 to 1 is going to be the same for like all of us.
yeah,
more
but
or less.
give me. Okay, I rate now.
Wait, what was your 6, Max?
Twists, but we already got
right,
why
right.
that's dumb. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I rate NAF in my
Did
top
you guys
10.
wait? Yeah. Why? How? He was better. He was the best player on Team Liquid.
I don't think so. I think
Dude,
the second half of the year that he. I don't think that.
I know what you're saying as well, Wallaby, but I looked at the stats and it's
Okay. I feel like Twist is more integral to their success, by far.
I mean, like if you say like, who do you want to go off in the final against Astralis? Yeah, sure. Like,
Yeah.
I would pick Twist to go off any day before NAF. He has more mechanical skill, although they're both very skilled players. But like Twist has that Nico factor. But the thing is that NAF just gets it done, just always. And I think that's very valuable on a team that just doesn't really get it done all the time. And I think that if you look, how is Team Liquid so successful all the way up to Astralis? How are they so consistent, despite the fact that Elige struggled with consistency at some parts of the year? The fact that Twist was mega inconsistent. Well, first, it's because of their strategical style and the way they were led, yes. And the other was that they had a crazy fragging backbone in NAF, especially in the first half of the year. Now, we kind of forget this because it was very far in the past, but like the numbers that the NAF was putting up at the beginning of the year, people were starting to say like, oh, he's a top 3 player in the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like, on Renegades too, but
Renegades
was last year.
Yeah, but like it was at the end of last year. Like that still echoes into this year because I think he still has a month like non-Liquid.
I feel like he's like the Magic's of Team Liquid. Like
which is why he's ranked so highly. Like
but see that's that's sort of nice that we sort of have that consistency in our different criteria, right? Like I just think that he's a very in the pocket player. Like I feel like Elige and Twist are much more integral to their T-side success at the very least.
I think I would almost say Twists is more integral as well, but to me NAF was because Twists it's a classic thing. Like he has a higher peak, but is more inconsistent. Whereas NAF is just the dude who actually, because you can have a 6 track, but someone needs to sometimes just find 2 kills for you to win the round. And the way NAF plays the game and where he plays for Liquid, it's like it's one of those things where if you watch enough, I know like it's especially happens in group stage as well sometimes when people just aren't missing and then just randomly they're like down a game against some team they shouldn't be losing to. That I've seen this as well, so I don't know.
But also,
I have NAF at 5 just to say.
Okay, so
Maybe
but
I'm
this is another factor. But here's another factor with NAF that was a big influence on my decision, which is that NAF is the only guy with balls on Team Liquid.
Yes, 100%.
And that was such an like.
Well, I think Twist does when has momentum and when he's feeling it. I think Twist has balls,
but not consistently.
But not consistently, no. And I think if like you're saying, as you said at the start, like if I want someone to be having balls in the final, I want it to be Twists. And I think when he does, he is not only has a higher peak than NAF, but like a 2nd or 3rd best player in the world peak Twists when he's going off. Like he's insane Twist, which was why he's like on my boner level 6. And I had to restrain myself from putting him higher, might I add. But yeah, I agree with you. NAF was ridiculous for Liquid this year because they were also the 2nd best team in the world. Like, and NAF was to me the main guy of that team. So at least
I feel like it's an Ethan Breezy situation where it's like maybe in terms of raw numbers, NAF is better, but like I just think that like Breezy is like such a more impactful player for that team that just like does stuff that like way more rare for a player to do or more difficult.
Yes, I agree, but you have to think of like I don't know.
See, that's just my thing. That's just my like.
For sure.
I put that in criteria.
I get it.
If you look at the rounds that switched everything, or that you weren't supposed to win and that you did win, and all that, that looked like they were the game's on the line, and this guy broke. He did something you weren't supposed to do. But if you look at 3 people are coming towards me, I'm going to die. I need to get 1 kill. If I'm good, I'm gonna get 2 kills, and if I'm breaking the game, I'm gonna get 3. Naf is always going to get 2, or not always. But
yeah, it's always like at the end of a round that Naf wins. It's always like, hey, nice man. It's not like, dude, what the fuck? It's just like, oh, dude, nice man.
Although no, that's not true. Sometimes, like when the balls moments, like I remember once on Mirage where he like jumped through a smoke and I might have been against.
I don't remember these in the
playoffs.
So.
But he jumped through a smoke and sprayed 4 down in a 1v4 and like with one clip, and it was just so. But the NAF just has that kind of decision making that I thought that Liquid needed more of, and
yes, I 100% agree.
And what they got was mostly out of NAF, and so to me he was the guy that it's the guy that Liquid needed, and they needed more of him.
He's just the stone cold killer that's just like a Terminator that just sees things and goes for them. Yeah.
So NAF number 6, number 5. You mentioned your number 5. My number 5, I made public earlier, was Magisk for similar reasons.
My number 5 was Twist, I think.
See,
Twist.
Yeah, so we're similar there.
Yeah.
I just think that Magisk is more skilled than NAF, and so he has.
That's
more...
so crazy how that syncs up. Like that's
awesome. That's sort of nice though. It's sort of like proves our point.
Yeah,
because I'm between the 2 guys. Anyway.
So that's that. I just thought Magisk was an equivalent to NAF, less important on his team, but I thought was more like kind of like more impressive, just generally speaking. Where you could see something happening, you would be watching the other side of the map, and then suddenly just Magisk with 2 random kills that he wasn't supposed to get. Yes. You're like, what the fuck just happened? It's just like, and so to me, that sort of aggressiveness of Magisk came more to play, and that was more impressive to me than NAF, but they were equivalent and interchangeable in many ways.
Max, what did you say your number 5 was? Did you say NAF? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you're sort of right. We're sort of getting a boring middle ground. Number 4 for me was Electronic, whose name I don't think has come up yet.
That was my number 4 as well.
Mine too. We're all going to be the same.
Okay, so we can talk about this Electronic for a minute. I mean, see, the thing that actually made me pause on him and maybe actually might be ranked higher is that I think he had a slow start to the year. He didn't really kick off till like maybe April, you know? He's a little slow, and then like Navi had to figure out their roles. But you think about Electronic, he's extreme. Like it feels like he's more of on that like Twist or Dupree end of the equation for me, where I feels like, you know, if he's not there on that team, like Edward and Zeus's days of being the entry duo on that squad are long over, or being successfully entry duo. It's all about Electronic and Simple making breaking the rounds open for Navi.
I think sorry, you can.
I mean, that was my point, basically.
Okay. But like what? Like Electronic was the guy that beat, because you know the famous Cologne series where Navi beat Astralis.
I was watching
semifinals. Yeah, and it's like Electronic won them that series, and that was like one of the most important series of the year to me. And the shit he did in that series was like.
Off 31 in Game 3 was a little fucking weird.
Yeah, dude, it was the sauciest series ever. Like in terms of how much they shouldn't have won, because there was a round where Electronic like is being pushed by a few players from Astralis, and he's on balcony on Inferno, and they're coming through quad short side, and he like kills one player on the balcony, points at the ground and throws a flash, and then jumps back over the balcony, turning around, and then the flash bounces off the balcony. And then as like Dupree rounds the corner from Bale, he like kills him fully blind. Like literally just did like a fadeaway flashbang and just shit that should never be possible. And he was, I think, he had ceilings a lot higher than people might remember because of how brightly Simple shone around those ceilings as well. But in terms of how he's developed as a player in Navi, like he started out in Navi, you know, at the end of last year. As this player, and when he came over from Flipside, he was this player playing, you know, sort of the more bitch spots, as being integrated as a new sort younger player would in a team that has someone like Simple and Zeus, you know, that they're naturally going to take more of the space. But then over time, he suddenly got more responsibility on T side. And he was given more opportunities to sort of go off on his own and find kills and workspace, and that's when we saw him massive, because Flamey was a secondary star to begin with. Within Navi, but then Electronic sort of has blown me away this year with how fucking good he is.
Yeah, I think that there has to be a caveat though, which is that he had a pretty bad start and end to the year. So we're really relying here on the middle part of the year. Like, yeah. So, but I still had him 4, so I agree. Like, I couldn't because I remember tweeting out at some point, probably around like right after Cologne. Like, I was like, I think there's a legitimate argument that electronic is just as good as simple. Or just, like, but the thing is, at that time, it had been so many lands that he had done, and he kept going for a bit after that. And I was pretty I probably wouldn't have put him over simple, but my point is that he shouldn't be so far away. Like, this should be a
and also because of how bad, like, relative to how bad Zeus, Edward, and Flamey were, like, too simple and electronic as well.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, that's a factor, right? And that's why he's above so many Astralis players for me, like, so easily, just because he has to overcome shit as well. It's not just simple who's the one, like,
he gets no benefits from the system. You saw fucking Magic getting fed kills to the fucking grinder on around.
No, but like, he is given the roles that he wants on.
No, Electronic has to fucking work his way through the game with fucking Deagle every other round because Navi forced by too much. Well, Magic's just spraying into fucking blocks 50% of the time.
I think. Well, I think Electronic got a lot of points for me because he got a higher peak. I thought he had a higher peak than anyone but Simple this year, even higher than Nico. At his
Electronics peak? What would be that peak? If
just right during the summer round, Cologne, Face of Nature, around that range. Where I remember not every land.
I think Nico's peak, but I agree, it was still fucking ridiculously high.
But I think that, it would be about comparable to Nico. I think obviously Nico did it for way longer in the year. So, but just for that period of time, it was so high that I couldn't. I felt very uncomfortable putting like Naf or Magus above him because I don't think that Naf or Magus came even close to the peak.
Okay. Well, I had Magus at number 3, but that's only because wow. Because I have Device, I had Device and Magus.
Oh, right.
You know, like,
that's
if
true.
We're following the logic, you know, of who we think.
I just don't think Matt just came up had the same.
I know, but like
he's sort of has a very different criteria.
Yeah, but in terms of if you switch Device and Magus around, then it would fit with what you guys are going to say more or less.
Yeah,
I guess maybe.
Max, why do you think that Magic is so aggressive? Like,
well, because also there's a bias that I have because I interviewed him after they won EPL season 8 finals. But like, no, that's 100% a factor because and since then I have like directly after the EPL finals, and I was just bored as fuck, I had to write some pieces and also watch VODs, and it's like to me Magus is the player that like in the same way that Naf is the guy that has balls and goes forward and does shit, like Magus is the guy that just is he is fearless against top teams, and he doesn't give, like, he knows he's better than them, and he pressures really, really, really good teams in a way that I think is far more individually and mechanically apparent than it is with Device, and is
mechanically strenuous. Like, he really he puts himself in really bad positions.
Before, if you just look at the way he duels and the way he plays the game, like it's so impressive, and so few players can play the way Magus does while also still being within the style. So I don't know, like, again, the boner meter, like if you put any Magus pit demo up, see you later, son. Any Magus bathrooms demo up, see you later. Like, there's some games where you just like, I'm like, oh well, this guy is on another level. Like, the numbers might not show up because he plays shitty spots, but whether by his own,
well, not shitty spots, he plays more isolated spots. That's
and so it's like sometimes he doesn't
wait, are you talking about on the CT side he plays isolated spots?
No, okay, here's an example. So like, if you're on A site Mirage and you're not the rotator, you're going to spend a lot of rounds just either
it's like a B rush or a mid play, right?
Mid play, you just play retake. You don't
you just play ticket.
Go for a ton of retakes. Yeah, so well, not he doesn't play ticket all the time, but like sometimes it's just let's retreat. So,
but dude, let me put it this way: if Astralis played like Navi does, you know, where it's just like best of luck, have a duel, you know, then I think it'd be different. But what he can do within Astralis' system. And obviously he plays that way because he knows that he has Device, Dupree, Zipnix, and Glaive behind him. So it's he has a degree of luxury to be so imposing and so dominant that other players don't. But I think even in spite of that, his what he's able to do in those moments impresses me a lot more than anyone else does.
He'll do like on Mirage specifically. We'll play like aggressively on like ramp, on the A side, and, like,
as well.
try to, like,
and then Dupree gets a secondary AWP and pushes into Palace, and it's
Yeah.
like you see the same shit being done with Kirby and Dupree, but it's like Kirby couldn't do, like, well, at least that duo couldn't do anything. And then you look at what Magus can do, and it's so I don't know. Like it's also that
he's just like I feel like he's just a way better duelist than Kirby was ever. Like just like his ability to
And when Kirby was at his peak at the start of 2017, he was an insane player, right? But then he just eventually tapered off, like, over time. But Magus never tapered off for me.
I mean, he fits more perfectly to like what Astralis' need. Like Dupree and Kirby overlap too much, right?
But also, like, I think Magus is just a way better player.
And he's like more
Kirby.
consistent, and he, like, you know, like, okay, like Dupree and like Device will be more the people to win round, like, to be more of like the initiators or people to take risk or try things. Well, he's more of the guy who just like will just get his kills. You know, it just either the game comes to him or he comes to he goes to them. But he'll get his impact.
He kills people. Yeah, dude, that's the best way of describing why I think Magus is number 3. He kills people like all the time, and in such a good way, in such pleasurable ways to watch.
Yeah, but this is important to note is that I do think that Astralis in a way covers up Magic's kind of warts. I remember in North, this was a long time ago, but in North and in Optic, Magis goes for a lot of individual plays that aren't the kind of individual plays that you see him doing on Astralis, where they're a lot more belligerent, random, one and dones. Like, and so
I think that was more pronounced on North towards the end, though.
Yeah, like definitely on Astralis, that when they want to switch up pace or they want to do something retarded, he'll be the one that does something retarded. But
no, it's true. But I just mean that I think that he does fewer of those things because he has a very smart team.
Right.
And I'm not sure that he wanted to do those things. Let's say he was on phase. Like, he's a phase.
Yes. I
he would look worse in some ways. He would have a better rating, but he would also look worse.
He's like he's like you know how like in nuclear reactors is that fucking like ball of energy and it needs the water coolant and all that shit to contain it to produce power. It's like Astralis is that container that like, and then he's just the fucking steam just coming out of the like huge silos, you know?
Yeah.
Just every single round, fuck yeah! It's just like so hyped up. And then Zipnix is just like completely quiet, just going like the brown man.
His face is, so his face is a fucking nuclear reactor. I don't mean to make fun of. I don't mean to make fun of people's appearance, you know. I'm self-conscious too, but we just gonna ignore that shit. Okay. Anyway, so number 3. My number 3 is gonna be Nico. Okay, I'm gonna lay down my groundwork. Okay, so you remember that famous SNL sketch with Will Ferrell when he does the cowbell and he's got that super fucking tight shirt on, his belly is hanging out. Think back about till 2016 Chub Nico. It sort of fits, right? Nico's a guy who just wants the sound of his own instrument to play super loud, right? No matter if it fits or not, he wants to sort of sum the game. And see, I actually think that's sort of like, to some degree, I think like, I think it's fucking stupid that Kerrigan can't be the in-game leader of FaZe anymore. Like, I definitely don't think that was the problem of that team. Well, like, I don't know how much that is like disagreeing or like, I don't know why their T-side stopped working, but
I actually am less annoyed at all that situation than most.
Well, I don't know any of the behind the scenes stuff, so
yeah. But I just sort of see like if you're having stagnant results,
you just need to change a player. And
like it.
Go
like,
Sunny for Rain.
When I saw
Sunny for Rain,
like,
so perfect.
But the thing is, like, I'm saying exactly what you're saying, but this is just the most fans' perspective, I think, with looking at the team. Like, you within that team, and I imagine just out of game with the balance of personalities. Like, it makes sense to me why.
No, but like if you think of in hockey, when a team is struggling, they don't they don't trade a superstar or something like that. That's not what they do. They fire the coach. It's always what they do.
Yeah, it's just the way it rolls. Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons
but they don't replace the coach with fucking mascot. You know, it's just a weird trade for like
no,
Kerrigan
but often they trade out a strategical harsh coach with a player's coach. That often happens, and they're like, okay, like this happened with Pittsburgh Penguins, who won back-to-back cups when this happened. They're like, okay, we have amazing players, just relax, just do your thing, and maybe we'll win. And they turned it around and won 2 cups in a row. It's very impressive. But like this kind of stuff can help. It's sort of a psychological relief where like we know we have enough to win. We're not winning. Let's just try something new, relax, sort of get levity again, enjoy playing again.
Well, because it's like the whole thing where it's like they're so talented that might not be all the logic goes. The fact that like that like Nico isn't playing, it's just a psychological block stopping them from doing what they're best at. There's like a million examples of that in sport. Like the Filipino pool player was like the best player in the world, and then he has the one cue he uses all the time, and then when he was going to a tournament overseas, the cue broke, and he had to get a new cue, and it's just like the psychological thing where you like never win again, you know?
Okay, that's
like,
a little extreme.
But like like a lot of the time you just need you don't need like new tactics. You just need a frag. That's like been Fnatic's fucking motto for the last like 17, like since the game started. It's like you just need a frag.
17 years, yeah.
Whatever, bro. But like it's like just that's just the way it goes. So I get it. But anyway, I think we're on a massive tangent.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make an SNL reference, and I it really didn't have anything to do with.
Fair enough.
I just thought of those old tight shirts that Nico used to wear. I don't know why he's so mean to players. I don't mean to insult.
I think
that's not a good thing.
Okay. I've said this on every platform that is available to me, but I just think that people haven't given Nico the credit that he deserves this year. I thought he had such
Nico's number 2 for me, just to say.
Yeah, I totally he had such a ridiculously consistent year. He was such a high level of performance on a very fluctuating team. It's not like the team was steady at all this year. And I just thought it was the best year of his career, and it's a shame that Astralis was the best team in the world and that Simple was the best player we've ever seen. Because
I think most people actually, as these lists start getting released, more people are talking about the year in full rather than the best team in the world at the time. Like people are starting to realize how insane it was, and I mean it's impossible to not watch any game from Epicenter that has FaZe in it, dude. Like if you want to see what Nico does at his peak.
No, I think Nico's incredibly impressive. I just think that my 2 is obviously Device. I just think that Nico isn't as essential to them opening up rounds as I think people might want to think, just because he gained the whole in-game leader thing later. Like I think Rain's still doing a lot of that, even though he dropped off as a player, but they relied a lot on Rain still to be the sort of point man, still CT and T, and then Guardian also does his thing. I mean, like and then Olmeister's also aggressive player. I think like the raw pressure on him to create space for the team is less than someone like a
but they have no one else in the team who can close rounds like he does.
No, I mean he's an amazing player, but massively so. Like it's without Nico, I think if like for example the team was as it was, and then Nico replaces Adren, or like that switch, like FaZe, or like the way the amount of FaZe rely on Nico in important rounds, and it's in really important games as well. Even, like games they end up losing as well. That they like Nico is just the guy that pulls all those strings together. Because you can have Olofmeister pressuring, you can have Rain pressuring, you can have Kerrigan being in the middle of the pack, and you can have Guardian being like just dominant on CT side. But you need someone to pull together around, like being cold zeros. But also Nico can open up rounds as well, which I guess is the thing that people get their dick over so much, because he does open up rounds in a spectacular way. But the way I think of him is more like the classic Nico thing, where it's like Mirage, post plant, A site. He's in fucking Palace. He's gonna shoulder peek and one tap 2 people. Oh yeah, I saw a clip of him doing that versus.
But it happens a lot. Like not exactly in the one tap fashion, but he's just in those positions where it's like, all right, you need to get 2 kills here on the retake under pressure because Olofmeister's just tried to peek and he's died, and so then he wins the round.
For me, it's a fountain on B side Inferno.
Yep.
just
yes.
It's just
like he has the most. He's the best player. I think better than Simple in terms of watching, and like in terms of boner meter alone. Like what
by
he can
far
achieve.
the most
Like he's the
beautiful player to
yeah,
watch. Yeah,
by
totally.
far.
Yeah.
By far. The only thing
So,
like that is that Simple ace when he was in matchmaking. That did you see that shit?
No,
no. Oh, dude, like I'll link it to you afterwards. In terms of
Yeah,
dude,
you DM
I have
your
that, like,
sweatpants
saved
on. You can get you can
Yeah.
take the underwear off.
Anyway, I'll send I'll send that to you like through like the dark web or some shit, dude. Give me a tour. That's anyway.
I just think that when we look back, people say that Device is the most underrated player of all time. Like, but I just think that if you look,
they talk enough, like, or they talk. It's just not like, I don't know. For a reason, people don't find their personalities.
Well, like because Niku complains about Glaive shooting people through smokes, and Device is Danish, so it's like
yeah.
No, I think it's Device has got the storyline of he was so underrated for so long that now that he is the best team in the world, he's kind of like being overrated because he's like, oh, he's so underappreciated. Yes. It's weird actually on Reddit because it's not like some people think that Nico is better and some people think that it's that some people think you're an idiot if you think that Device is better than Nico, and you're an idiot if you think that Nico is better than Device. It's a very strange, like, and this
smooth brain point of view.
Yeah, but people can say like, oh, this is just Reddit, but this is a weird. I think this really depends on your criteria. It's just like completely different. Changes your perspective on who was better.
I think we need to be talking about this deep into the podcast because I think we framed it.
Right, but like I just think it's interesting because we're at the 3-2 mark now. But I think when you look at the last 3 years combined, Nico was the best player. So like I've never
thought about it that way.
I just thought he was the best player last year. Yeah. I thought that in 2016, obviously he didn't play on a top team, but he was really.
I think Cold Zero got overrated the last couple of years. I think
I think with time he's. Especially throughout this year, I agree with you.
Like, I feel like he's like my thing with him would be like he'd be more around like 3, 4, 5, 6 over the last, like, in my like more like view of the world,
top 10,
rather than
like this.
But this year,
other people would be like,
if you,
he's won this year, 10 next year, like depending on how good his team is. But I like try to normalize that. Like it's my
I think that around, like, if you took Cold Zero last year and you input him in this year, he would be 4 for me or 5 for me.
Yeah.
Like, I think that if you take Nico last year, he'd be the best player. You take Device this year, you put him last year, best player. But at the same time, players are. I just think players are consistently improving because you look at Cold Zero, compare him to Olaf Meister.
Yes.
Like I mean, I don't think Olaf Meister is much worse now than he was.
Olaf Meister was just dropping like 35 kills with a Tech 9, and then they nerfed it, and he became like the 20 player in the world. It's like, oh.
No, that's a little reductive, but like, I just think that like players are getting more and more mechanically skilled and more impressive.
I agree with you.
And teams are finding ways of.
Well, it's also because like they just have there's more resources and pressure to be a better player. And so there's just more time and a bigger bank of knowledge to draw from on how to become a better player. And players are better as a result. You know what I mean?
But like,
and with a team like Astralis being at the top as well, they're the ones at the like very front of the trail, like cutting into the jungle with machete. And then everyone sort of like Simple is like a monkey in the trees, like 500 kilometers ahead. And then everyone else is just sort of improving slowly and progressing as players together, and the rankings reflect that. Because I think, for example, someone like Crims this year would have been, like could you imagine if Crims from 2018 was operating last year, like the work he would have done? Anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. Or even like 3 years ago, if he was playing this in Fnatic, that would have been, he probably would have won over Olaf Meister. But even just in raw skill, it's not just like the way people like compare Olaf Meister in his peak or whatever. I don't think he's less skilled now than he was then, but maybe I have bad memory. And then I just think he got away with a lot more than he does now.
Yes, dude. I sometimes do that. We just watch games from 2014. I was watching Fnatic versus VP in some game on Mirage, and just seeing like the just not even like Oh, I don't know. It's just one of those things where you just cringe looking back at it now. And you see like something as simple as the CT smoke that you can throw to top mid from spawn, like on Mirage, and you're like, oh wait, did the skyboxes exist back then? But anyway, you know what I mean? It's like the meta's just so much more complex now that I think players are forced. There's so many more things to consider as a player when you're trying to find space, that you're forced to be more cerebral and you're forced to have better aim because the pressures to stop you from doing so are more.
Yeah, for sure. But I also think there's something to the idea of players just like playing just Counter-Strike and learning how to play CSGO instead of.
I mean, like, look at machine learning. Look
at Olaf Meister, and look at Ethan or Sergey.
Yeah,
like they're so much more skilled than he is. Like,
dude,
but I mean, Olaf Meister,
you know,
like I think, and Nico for me is the first of those kinds of players. Like, just like absolutely ridiculous. But so all that to say, like, I think I don't be too harsh on Code Zero. I just think that he had some, like, the players now are so much better that it looks kind of bad. But I do think that if you look back at 2016 and 2017, he was definitely a top 2 player in both of those years. So
can I also just say, just during this, when I get a bit tilted with the and I might be stepping into water that's like way out of my depth there, but in terms of like when people call Simple the greatest Counter-Strike player of all time,
I don't know.
Right, of course.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, in 2004, like, I don't know, I wasn't around, I haven't watched a single game.
I think that people generally mean CSGO. It's just laborious to say CSGO. I know that I certainly never think about Sorcerer 1.6 in any capacity.
No, I don't know anything either. So
yeah.
I
know. Sure. I find it weird, just because, especially, I don't know. I have to think more about that before I say anything else publicly, because like, I feel like there's room for me to say something brash that I just have to think about.
No, see, that's a nice thing. Like, if you say something on Twitter, like, I don't think Naf's a top 10 player, I would have like a fucking like swarm of people. But like, if it's buried in the podcast, there won't be any like hella backlash, unless like I get a bitter Team Smooth Brain person to come through this and get mad and try to call me out.
Dude, there's gonna be like a video clip together of like Wallaby HLTV highlights. Like, you have your own MVP video.
Oh, you gotta say the name. You fucking blowing in Beetlejuice in here by saying their name.
Oh my God.
Okay. Algorithm's gonna pick it up.
What's your view? Like, tell us what you think, Max. You mentioned you have an opinion, a brash opinion about the old Counter-Strike.
Oh, well, no, like to me, I just, and this isn't like, I haven't thought this through, but like, I think for sure probably Simple is like the best out of all Counter-Strike players. Like, just in terms of, because if you think about the level of competition, and then just the progression, and if you think about the Counter-Strike series as a whole, and obviously it's not a clean way to think about it, but just the idea of first-person shooters in general, and like how competitive ecosystems evolve over time, and the like, to be the apex predator of that system and to be the best player in the world and to be a transcendent player, how that actually becomes more difficult over time, and how there's different levels to being a god, you know?
Well, just think about how the technology's changed too, though. Like, mice are better, screens are better.
Also support, like, you get to play more, probably.
But also, like, all the teams have a coach and everyone knows how to play. Like, there's a massive bank of data on how to play Counter-Strike, you know? Like,
there wasn't YouTube in 2004, you know?
Yeah, the capacity for people to share things and for their understanding on how to shut down a really good player has just evolved so much over time. It's so much more difficult to be a transcendent player now. But like, Simple is that, like, he's so far ahead of people in that way. And so I don't know, like, maybe the distance of how far ahead he is equivalent to how far ahead someone like Forrest was in CS. I have never watched CS. Maybe the amount of time is longer as well, so it's more impressive. But I think in terms of what Simple is able to achieve in the moment and like what he does in a game, I can't, like, I watch Forrest highlight clips from CS 1.6 and I don't play the game, so I don't have a reference point for how insane that is. But to me, it's like what Simple does is so, like, it's so much better. But No, that's obviously because
but you have to adjust. You have to adjust for arrows. So I like. There's always this argument in every sport, which is like players now are probably way more physically fit than the ones who are doing.
It's like the whole boxing argument, right? It's like with boxing,
totally.
You have like the best boxer of all time is this motherfucker with that looks like this from the 19th century, you know, and he's got like 700 wins and like 2 losses.
Yeah,
his name's like Knuckle Larry or something.
Well, so when you go that
they
far
hadn't
back,
invented steroids yet,
but
and also didn't recognize black people as human beings at that point. So.
Right, but like when you take, for example, in hockey, which is my frame of reference, you take people generally speaking think the best players are from the 80s. It's Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. But if you put a player now at that time, on one hand, people used to get fucking murdered back then, so they would probably get immediately crippled with all their bones broken. But that's because the rules are changing and people are more human now. But also, like, just in terms of raw skill set and peak physical condition, like, it's not fair to compare. So to me, you really have to compare the dominance relative to the era, because like you could say,
I think in Counter-Strike that's less so, because the difference between like the game that they were playing isn't like, it's more so because it's not like the like difficulty to flick across the screen has changed that much. Or like the difficulty to move your character around has changed that much.
The amount of support that they have in order to practice as much as possible.
But like the amount of
the level at which people in general in the community think about the game is increasing like time and time again.
So it goes both ways in terms of how to shut down players as well as how to get good at the game.
Yeah, no, but that's my point, is that it changes, but it doesn't change. It doesn't change force. It doesn't advantage simple or disadvantage simple. The fact that the era changes, it's both harder and easier for him, which is why you have to look at him versus his era. And you can't look at him versus another era. Except for fun hypotheticals, you can. Like, how would simple look playing in CS Source or CS 1.6 or 1.3 or whatever? Sure, but when you look at, like, when you're trying to rank people or new rates of all time, first of all, I don't see they're literally different games. I don't see the point of comparing.
Yes, for sure.
So,
I totally agree.
Like,
I wasn't following it either, so I can't really. I feel like it's pretty
right. Of course, right. But
it's an interesting discussion to have, though, I think.
Yeah. Okay, but we've gotten off track. But so Max, your number 3 was Magic's. Your number 2.
I went Magisk, Nico, Simple.
Oh yeah, I'm a Simple. Well, it's Simple at number 1, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't put Simple in my top 10. No, I'm just kidding.
No. My number 1 is actually MSL. Okay, I do want to like chill for Device just for 1 second, and then we talk about Simple. I think that people, like, because Max, you're doing a very different list.
How about this, Scott? How about this? Convince me of why, because I'm open-minded, and like if I was to do it, I would put Device at number 3. Like if I was to do it properly, and not have the bone rating. Like my Magisk and Device would probably switch, right? So I would have Device at number 3. And so, like, I haven't watched any of your content, Sam, on my Device.
I didn't want. I got mad when you or I got bored when watching the Stucci one, and I heard you say match number 5. I just started shit posting in the comment section. Didn't watch the rest of that one.
How did you get bored? Even Thorn tweeted about it with my great points. But I mentioned one thing that I did mention, which was significant actually, in the factor is that like, let's say Nico's highest rating against the top team is 1.18 against Na'Vi, which is pretty good, which is about his standard. He was 123 for the full year. But if you look, and this is confirmed by the eye test, it's just hard for me to convey the eye test to you. But Device's rating against Team Liquid, which was their biggest rival across the year, was 126, which is just like that's above his average. And not only above his average, it's above his average against the second best team in the world. That doesn't happen for any other player.
No. But so dude, like, I did that whole Counterpoints podcast at the other day, like a month ago, and it's just like those Liquid Astralis got really shitty real quick. Like Liquid straight up, like it's dog shit watching those games. It's not Device slamming them to the ground. It's Liquid putting in Like, it's pathetic the way that they play some of those games. It's abominable.
Sometimes, but sometimes you see. Like,
sometimes
they
they do come
played
into
hold on, also they played so many games that there's like a very
No,
large.
I watched all of
Yeah.
them though. I did the whole.
Really?
I did the giant article about the Liquid Astralis Survivor. I watched every single game. Like, some of those games are atrocious by Liquid. Just like
Yeah,
Astralis,
for sure, because they're
I said this
sometimes
on
mentally crushed.
I sorry to cannibalize content again. This has been cannibalized like 3 times, but like, I watched around the very first gun round of a Liquid Astralis game on Inferno, where they were Astralis were so confident they had so much banana control. The very first, or I think it was the very first gun round of the game, they stacked 5A a minute into the round because they knew for a fact that Liquid was too
Ridiculous.
nowhere close to coming to their banana. Like, it's absurd how afraid Liquid were. Like, I just can't no matter how many times I say this point in different media, like, I just can't stress like how crazy it is. They put 5A like on the first round.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where it's like, yes, the jury rests its case. So.
No,
but I do think that. So, for example, you have to ask the question: why is it that Liquid wasn't willing to take control, or wasn't in this case banana control? Why were they scared of taking map control? One of the primary reasons you're scared of taking map control against Astralis because you have no fucking idea where device is. That is one of the factors.
Yeah.
Right?
It's almost like how ancient humans, like always being attacked by big cats. And so now that when like I'm in 2019 and I like just hear like a stick break behind me and immediately like like just like immediately tense up. It's like that shit's so ingrained.
Yeah, I think we don't have any big cats in Canada, so
I love cats.
Particular.
So
Device is a big cat.
Really scared.
I'm a fan.
Really kids.
No.
Anyway, but my point is that there are actual maps that are competitive, and those maps where like you have people like Elise trying to take map control, like with a fucking AUG, and just getting absolutely dumped on constantly by device.
Yeah,
that's not the first time I heard you complain about Liege Zog. You're not a fan.
I fucking hate Alicia's AUG, and I just can't stand it. I think it's so bad. Like, people told me like, he got better as the year went on. So like towards the end of the year, he was actually good with it. Like maybe, but fucking, there were some badass, really bad rounds.
Some shit that comes out of the ass rounds.
What I think that he was, I actually think that it really hurt their team because there were times where he was trying shit that he would never try with an M4, and he was just trying to make it work, and he was dying constantly with it. I'm just like, anyway, that's a total tangent. But my point is that like, if you look at the fragging performance of Astralis normally and against Liquid it goes up and it favors device way more strongly. And it's not, I don't think it's a coincidence that they were so dominant against that team, and that their most like a mobile dynamic player was just absolutely wrecking them on a fragging level that only Simple is comparable to. And like, to me, that's because of the volume of finals that they were, and some of them were close finals. Not all of them were depressing. Yeah. Well, admittedly, towards the end, a lot of them were depressing. Yeah. But a lot of them weren't.
There was some hype finals.
Yeah,
like
totally.
In the EPL finals, you have to remember, like Liquid were hot coming into it. Everyone was like a bit jittery about it, and then they.
I thought they did the pick and ban phase way better, but I've already gone through all of this before. But here's the point I want to make for Dice. I think Max, your point earlier, dude, even MSL when he did that shit was MVP.
Yeah,
that's not a point in
tongue in cheek.
That's not a point in like the in MSL's favor. That's not a point in like how easy it is. That's how fucking baller Device's style is. The fucking device can't even can't even eat food. Like the fork can't even like find the fucking like sushi roll on his plate. He's so bad mechanically, like he can't use an op, and yet he's putting up MVP numbers by just doing a bad imitation of Device. Well, actually, a pretty good imitation of Device. But like, he's found a style that's so good, like so specific, that he's had incredible impact. He turns games around. I mean, I really do think you could. I feel like 2 and 3 Device Nico are fairly interchangeable. I do think I want to get. I do go back and forth on those. Like, it is a really tough discussion, and I have to sit through another 45 minutes of Sam and Stu Chu's podcast to come up with
come out the other side.
Yeah.
To be fair, we spent the second half just talking about just random shit and like just started talking about Kerrigan and Optic and whatever.
Yeah, that's what I did when I was on Stu Chu's podcast. But I think the device is a very good player, and case rest. So, anyone want to gush about Simple, or we good?
Dude, just just go to my Twitter and just scroll down and then click an arbitrary tweet, and you'll probably land on something. Like, there's enough gushing I've done publicly about Simple.
You know those gushers, from when you're a kid, like the little Halloween themed candy,
American ass candies.
Oh, sorry. Oh. I forget that we have from different cultures in my references.
I mean, they exist. Like they're just like wine.
What are they? What are they?
It's like shitty candy where if you bite into it, a lot of pus, colored pus comes out.
It's a juju, but there's like viscous liquid inside.
No, I'm familiar with this brand of lolly. It's some good shit. There's some. I gush for gushers. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Simple is the outside of the gusher. Money from bad websites that pay us is the inside of the gusher. We're just gushing. We're making money off this shit. It's great.
Dude, you're not allowed to say that publicly with me in the same
No, I mean, I work for different websites than you do.
Is gonna come.
Sorry. I was talking about me. I don't know why you put it into your world. I'm sure that everything that you do is fantastic. For all those great websites you work for that have 4 letters in an acronym. Okay. Sam, any final words? Any apologies that you want to make to me?
Just remember, guys,
about apathy, my life from earlier.
No. Well, actually, apathy and nihilism do relate to your life. So, yeah, just keep practicing that, boys. I don't know. I'm pretty. I don't know this rating.
We should do it's the start of the year, 2019. Is this going to be the year that Riders Block becomes the #1 esports podcast in the world?
You're implying that it isn't. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah. No. Hey, exactly. It's number two.
After Stuchu's podcast.
Exactly.
Me and Sam both.
Podcast.
Yeah, all right. I'll make sure me and Sam will talk to Stuchu. We'll get you in there. We'll make sure we keep it the number 1.
I think I've done a Stuchu podcast before. I think
you would remember if you did a Stuchu podcast.
Yeah,
it is an honor we all hold dear.
Yeah, I've done a Stuchu podcast. I've done a couple Stuchu podcasts in my time. Yeah. I know.
Okay, great way to ending the podcast on a strong note. Okay, and ending it.